Defense Secretary Mark Esper says this week the Air Force and Space Force are, quote, fundamentally changing the character of war through new technologies. Esper calls air, space, and cyber warriors at the forefront of the future fight. Kaitlyn Johnson's Associate Director of the Aerospace Security Project, the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Kaitlyn, welcome back. Is this a stake in the ground? Is this a new direction in the way that the U.S. military or the Trump administration is talking about space? Or is this a continuation and evolution of the narrative that you've been seeing?
I think it's that second point. It's an evolution of the narrative that we've already been seeing. A lot of this narrative, of course, was, prime focus when the Space Force was created, which was over a year ago, or about half a year ago. What is time in the pandemic? But Esper's remarks at the Aerospace and Cyber Conference, especially about warfare in space, was a lot of what we've already been hearing, and that he's accusing Russia and China of weaponizing space through killer satellites and directed energy weapons, which is not untrue, but it does ignore that we have our own arsenal of both offensive and defensive space weapons as well.
It strikes me that what is maybe not new but louder is the call that Secretary Esper is making and others are making in the department and outside the department. This is a quote: "We cannot take for granted the United States' long-held advantages." That's similar language to the third offset, but I think when Bob Work suggested the third offset in the Obama administration, there was a sense that we still had a fairly wide margin ahead of China and Russia, and we needed to maintain that. It sounds like Secretary Esper is suggesting that that margin is eroding. Am I maybe too much of an alarmist?
Well, I can't speak to other domains, but in space, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think Russia and China have incredible capabilities in space, but at the same time, so do we, and even more so. What is maybe alarming is Russia and China are becoming more bold in their testing of capabilities. China just launched a space plane, very much like our own X-37. And Russia is testing on-orbit capabilities that's making people inside the department and around the globe a little worried.
What is it that we should be able to do to maintain that margin, to try to, and maybe even try to expand it?
So this is the key question that our General Raymond, who's the commander of the Space Force, is facing right now. What to do and to keep that margin. And you can hear a lot of this in their rhetoric and in General Raymond's speeches as well. But it's building more resilient satellite architectures that are designed to withstand attacks, such as jamming or cyber attacks. Maybe building more distributed architectures so that our capabilities are spread amongst tens or hundreds of satellites instead of a few very high valued and very valuable targets for our adversaries. But General Raymond did say, in his speech at the conference as well, is that if a budget is not passed, a CR would hurt the Space Force. And maybe we are our own worst enemy in this fight.
What does the reliance right now, the interaction with the commercial space providers mean for somebody like General Raymond, who is trying to sort this out? One of the advantages, it strikes me, that China and Russia have is they can do whatever they want whenever they want, and they can do it under government auspices. We don't want that capability, but we also don't have that capability, and so there's that interaction that obviously NASA and the services are becoming more reliant, not less reliant, on commercial space.
I think that's true. But commercial space gives us an incredible advantage. There is innovation that is ongoing in American new space companies and our traditional defense stalwarts that is just not happening in China or Russia. And this is because of the way that our system is set up and the way that the government can feed in money to promote research and development in these countries and capitalize on, just the brain power and the innovation that that new space has.
One of the things that Secretary Esper talked about was the joint warfighting concept, and the joint idea is something that every branch is talking about. and how it will apply in space. What's your sense of how the execution of that is actually going, what the execution actually looks like right now, Kaitlyn?
Sure. So I think this is one of the biggest challenges for the Space Force is getting this part of the joint warfighting concept right. Space is both an enabler of all other domains and is also able to act independently. And that makes it critical for any joint warfighting construct. And the Space Force is definitely allowing policymakers and military professionals to rethink how this construct should be better conducted and better integrate space into the other services.
We have less than a minute left. Kaitlyn, what's the tie-in between the concepts that we've discussed and the Space Force's capstone doctrine, the first piece of paper, basically, that says this is how we're going to do business?
I think all of these issues that we've covered today and that are in the space power doctrine are not new issues. For the space community, these are issues we've been talking about forever. It's just that it's now being a little louder. And when Esper comes out and Raymond come out and talk about these issues, it catches the ear of policymakers on the Hill and in the administration who have, wide influence to help the Space Force and help DoD make these changes.
Kaitlyn Johnson, great to have you back. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Francis.